Hello, this is the Tradesight U.S. Stocks and Futures Market Preview for Thursday and Friday, the 20th and 21st of August, 2015. This will wrap up the week here. Hope you had a good trading week so far. We do not do market previews typically for Fridays. Certainly not going to do it for what is likely to be a standalone preview for what is likely to be one of the slowest Fridays of the year. August options expiration is typically really poor in terms of activity. So let's just talk about what we've got left this week. Let's start first of all by looking at the ES front month futures contract. This is the daily chart. Came very close again today to that 2062.50 level. Gap down, headed lower. I'll show you the intraday action. Some really neat technicals to fill the gap later in the day, and then settled in near the lows of the session. So all told, the S&P lost 17 points. We had a decent trading day. Out of our stock picks that triggered with market support, 6 out of 8 of them worked. So it's a decent day. You might have seen some options unraveling, although it was kind of two-directional, which is unusual. But nevertheless, I have a feeling that's what we saw. And we'll look at that on the intraday action as well. The NASDAQ 100 lost 31 points. SOX lost 5.5. This is new lows for the SOX, but I will point out if I go to projection mode, you're going to hear an alert here. There's the 13 buy signal after today on the SOX index. So it'll be interesting to see if that leads to a general reversal. Notice that the risk line is starting to form. That's the pink line right above the number 13, just above 600. So we can still trade all the way down to there and hold that signal before curling up. But generally speaking, we may have a signal here on the SOX finally. That's new lows for the year again for the close. Biotech's lost 25.3, still under the 10-day moving average. Google managed to gain $5.31, getting back near the recent highs. Apple lost $1.50, rolling over back under that 10 EMA, and not looking good here. We've got actually, out of all the closes that we've had, I only see 1 and 2 of them that have been lower than this in this area that we've been in August since the drop. And certainly, for the year, January was lower, but the rest of the year, this is the third lowest close for Apple. Here's the VIX up $1.46 to 16, almost 16 is the high. It's a decent move up. Crude oil, can you believe it? Closes at $40.80, new low for the year, for the last couple years, for a while back. Just really amazing that crude oil can be down here. Not at lowest trade. It did trade lower back on Friday briefly, but definitely by a long shot the lowest close that we've had in a while. That's an amazing chart. Gold up 15.9, heading back towards that green static trend line. The trend closed the session at 1.54 as my alert goes off there as well. That's a high number on the trend, and that brings the moving average back up to 1.05. The advanced decliners, obviously negative, the worst we've seen this month. Decliners leading advancers by essentially 1,400 on the NASDAQ. That is not pretty. But again, I don't expect much from Friday. We'll talk about that in a moment, so I'm not sure that this leads to anything unless it happens on Thursday. Volume was up, and that's probably a reflection of the options unraveling that we probably got a bit of. And so let's take a look at that. Let's go back to the ES front month futures contract and take a look at the 5-minute candles. You can see we gapped down from the prior days, from Tuesday's close, and initially headed lower. And then after the first hour, this is why I think we got the options unraveling. Notice the volume. It held up most of the session, came back in the afternoon. Better volume than we've seen in the market, but also in the futures. That's what you usually see when you get to the options unraveling move. Usually, whatever you start at after 1 hour, if you head one direction, you hold it for the rest of the session. That's options unraveling. But in this case, we did head lower after the first hour, bottomed out over lunch, and then came back. What's interesting is in that spike move when they came back from lunch, they broke out to highs and ran the thing. They ran it right up to fill the gap exactly to the close from Tuesday, and that was the high. And then we came all the way back and settled near the lows. It's got a good 25 points of range on the ES. That's the best we've seen in a while. Helped us out with the trades that we did take. But we did settle near the lows after all that, so it's just a pure technical gap fill. And maybe a little bit of options unraveling in both directions, I suppose. What does that leave for tomorrow? Well, tomorrow we start with some news. We've got quite a bit of it, actually, for a Thursday. We've got the weekly initial and continuing jobless claims numbers an hour before the bell. And then 30 minutes in, existing home sales, Philly Fed, and leading indicators. None of those is a big number, but certainly the three of them combined could lead to some excitement. And then 30 minutes after that, we've got the natty gas inventories. That wraps economic data for the week. We have none the rest of the day on Thursday and none on Friday. Obviously, we're going to be keeping an eye on the 2062.50 level on the ES. You can see from this intraday chart, we kept within 3 or 4 points of it today. And Friday is options expiration, so that tends to be very light. And remember, when we go back here and we look at the volume, I'll put the daily charts back up here. Let's go back and look at volume, which is, was really low the prior 3 days, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, basically under 1.4 billion shares. Now let me slide it again and remind you by putting last August in the middle. You can see the last 10 days or so of August was when volume really drops off. This is just vacation, the biggest vacation weeks. No complaints about what we did today. Futures market was really good for us. Had a nice trade in the opening range trades. Had a nice ES short after that. Well, a minor ES short, but it was still profitable. Could have taken the breakout into the gap, heading up towards that gap fill. That worked as well. So there's been some nice stuff in the futures, but in the stocks worked well. But again, I would expect maybe a little volatility Thursday we can hope for, and then Friday I just don't see it. There's gonna be nothing here. I would not be surprised if most people take Friday off, or especially after the first hour at best. And then next week could still be very late, and potentially all the way to Labor Day. Labor Day is late this year, September 7th. So we'll see where that breaks down, or if people are back for the beginning of September. But somewhere in there, just like you can see here last year, suddenly September rolls around, volume jumps back to that 1.8 billion shares. Our 10-day moving average of volume was 1.8 billion by the time by halfway through September or so. Last year. So, right now, where's the 10-day moving average of volume? It's 1.65 and probably heading lower as we knock off a couple of these days from 10 days back and focus on these lower numbers. So that's just a normal cycle of things, and there's no complaints here for me. I've had a nice August, but certainly I don't expect the next day, and especially Friday, to be much. So we will wrap it for the week. I hope you find this useful as usual. Charts brought to you by eSignal. If you've not taken a trial of our services, feel free to do so. And if you do find these videos useful, please like them on YouTube. It does help us out. Have a great trading Friday.